All right, it's okay if I go ahead? All righty. It is 6:30 and time for the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting to begin. We do not have any minutes to approve this evening, so we can move right to our two ordinances that we have up for discussion tonight. First, we will consider temporary ordinance B21, an ordinance presented by the administration upon recommendation of the Planning Commission for the demolition of an existing boat repair building and construction of a 14,500 square foot addition to an existing boat storage building to accommodate the repair operations of Buckeye Sports Center at 4610 State Road and declaring an emergency. Mr. Paul, are you on, and can you discuss this for us? Present
I
it?
am, and I can. Yes, thank
Wonderful,
you.
thank you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Paul with the Planning Division in the Community Development Department with the city. I'll go ahead and share my screen now so we can all kind of review what we just heard introduced to the agenda concerning Buckeye Sports Center at 4610 State Road. Hopefully most of you are familiar with this site. And the summary of the project here is that the applicant and owner, Mr. Jim Armington, has submitted a major site plan application for Buckeye Sports Center. And the reason it was a major site plan is based on the size of the square footage of his addition. At 4610 State Road, the zoning designation there is MU3, which is mixed use. The application seeks approval to demolish an existing boat repair building and construct a 14,500 square foot addition to an existing boat storage building to accommodate the repair operations. Let me jump over here real quick, and that's a look at the elevations of what Mr. Armington is proposing. But I'll give you a little bit more context here with their existing conditions plan. So this area here to the lower left center area of the screen is the showroom and the main building for Buckeye Sports Center. This is a parking lot which he recently expanded out front to accommodate an addition at the front of this building. And then here there's a larger building. If you're standing at State Road facing his site, it's on your right. And then more to the rear of the site in this area is a second building, the second accessory building. So that's what's there now. And what they're proposing to do is knock that second building down, add this dark gray space here you see to the other building that's up to the right. So really it's a consolidation on the site of his operations, and something that he described as making things work more functional for him, and really is an improvement to the site overall by taking down an older industrial building and adding this one. We'll jump back over here and get back into what the Planning Commission reviewed and discussed. And as I mentioned, the site zone mixed use. And so there is a set of material and design standards that need to be met in the mixed use districts. This application was considered at the April 20th Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission recommends approval with these following stipulations here. That the applicant and or the architect, whomever his staff is, that he wanted to dispatch to us to get together on these items, work with us on additional material elements to more closely meet the requirements of the massing and scale and mixed center design materials. And that's just about the look and the materials used on the facade and meeting the city's design standards per the general development code there, which are generally met. He generally meets all the major site plan review criteria. We were just asking to see some additional elements of what he's showing on the front part of the facade, which typically have a little bit more material enhancement to give the aesthetics a better look, and carry some of that around the back because he's now got some new neighbors. And that's what the standards say in the mixed use district. The second criteria was just a simple kind of thing to ensure that the lighting that they're going to put on that building is cast downward. And then we also asked that the applicant submit a detailed landscaping plan showing heavy screening of the rear, which is his west property line, and we can review that internally. And then attached to this summary, I put in another sheet that shows you kind of, again, what the consolidation will do is add the dark gray space here you see to this existing building with removal of another one that's in this area, and then to provide some additional screening here to the rear of his site. And below that is a rendering they submitted, and that shows some of what the mixed-use material design guidelines call for with the base, body, and crown elements and using stone or masonry type enhancements. So that is the general summary. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for the moment. As we get on the call, I did not see Mr. Armington here. It could be potentially that he hadn't yet received his letter. We also emailed it to him, and he'd already been in contact with our office about some of these conditions that the Planning Commission was setting forth for recommendation to get together on site at his facility and take a look at some of those things. So obviously he's been a good neighbor and willing to work with us. And if I can help answer any questions in his absence, I'll do so. Or if you've got anything specific you need to the code or to the report, I'd be glad to follow up on it for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Am I correct in understanding from the meeting on April 20th that there's actually going to be more of a buffer between Buckeye Sporting and their neighbors?
That's correct. Yeah, the new building addition would be set back at a further distance from the rear property line than where the building that's coming down is currently at. Yes.
So, and this will allow them to handle the growth of their business, which is going to help the growth of Cuyahoga Falls. And it sounds like a wonderful plan. Are there any questions from the committee? No. Any questions from council? Scrolling here. Any questions from the public who are on tonight's meeting? And were there any comments or questions submitted by email or other correspondence?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to bring temporary ordinance B21 out of committee tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to bring temporary ordinance B21 out of committee for a vote of full council next week. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 3-0. Next, we have temporary ordinance B22, an ordinance presented by the administration upon recommendation of the Planning Commission approving the preliminary subdivision plat for Princeton Place on parcel numbers 35-00517 and 35-00402 and declaring an emergency. Again, Mr. Paul.
Yes, thank you. So again, from the same meeting here, and I'll go ahead and share my screen so that we can all hopefully get on the same page here. Same Planning Commission meeting from April 20th, in which applicant Greg Moda submitted preliminary development plans for preliminary plat requirements, which are found in section 1113.03 of the General Development Code. He did so on behalf of the owner, Princeton Crossroads Investment LLC. The parcel numbers are 35-00517 and 35-00402. These are on the west side of Walker Lake Road. The application seeks preliminary approval of 155 multifamily residential units on 32.55 acres as the residential component of the total 37.95 acre mixed use MU3 suburban center site. And you may recall this concept first came through under a zoning map amendment, in which we did ultimately go through with an amendment of our zoning map from E1 employment district to MU3 mixed use here. And that was sort of the middle ground of those two things in order to hopefully help still create some new commercial space, some office space, and generate jobs and additional economic growth in that way without totally losing that from the E1, while still providing for a residential development that was sought by the applicant initially. And so they worked back and forth on some of those items and revised to get to the preliminary plan that had since been submitted to the Planning Commission and recommended for approval here this evening. There were, as is typical at this stage of a larger type of development, there were a number of stipulations or recommendations that came with that. And we can go through those here. Based on the findings from our code and departmental review, these are, and I think there are, 15 of them that were recommended. Some of this was just in keeping with what was reviewed and considered in making the zoning map amendment decision. And I'll touch on some of those things here momentarily. And the first is that the developer exhibit compliance with the requirement from that map amendment to provide commercial or office area on at least 25% or 10 acres of the entire site, taking into consideration open area and water retention areas to be included in the commercial area calculation. And what happened with that is that, and Mr. Moda can speak to this a little bit in more detail if you do have additional questions, but based on the area that was developable and what the former planning director helped work with the applicant on and presented to council, there was a determination that they could achieve roughly the same outcome with 50 to 60,000 square feet of commercial and office building area. And so that was shown on conceptual drawings at that stage and is intended to be included with the same component of the mixed use development here. In terms of phasing, they're really only presenting what they want to accomplish first with the residential component. And so the mixed use building or commercial office building space was not shown at this part of the preliminary plat. We make recommendation throughout this list here that it is expressly labeled to be done so in that way. Number 2, removal of potential from parcel label and platting of lot as phase 2, as I just mentioned. At number 3, revision to meet requirement that residential units shall not exceed 150 units. And in response to these things, we've had some discussions following the Planning Commission meeting with the applicant, and they're working towards all these things and really had not shown much issue with being able to do so. That again, the 150 unit maximum came from the map amendment stage, and we carried it through to this when they came through for the preliminary. Number 4, the developer worked with the city on finished street requirements to a code compliant standard and to meet all other Title II land division requirements. The reason that's in there is because our street code and the Title II land division and the infrastructure code says that even if you're building a private street or alley access, whatever you want to call it, it still needs to be constructed to a public standard. Number 5, private roadway pavement design cannot be used for public roadways for future requests. And just as a disclaimer, this list will include all comments we would have received from other departments as well. So engineering, fire, electric, and all the other departments that review these projects when they come through the city. Number 6, a downstream analysis is required in accordance with section 1124.03. Number 7, the final plat shall show stream corridor buffers in accordance with chapter 1125. Number 8, wetland delineation shall be submitted to ACOE with jurisdictional determination issued and mitigation credits paid for if required prior to any grading. Number 9, all housing finished materials be designed to meet or exceed Northampton planning area and residential design and mixed use districts through appropriate use of brick veneer, stone or cast stone, cement fiberboard or premium vinyl siding, and coach garage doors with windows. These are a little bit different in terms of their setup from what you may think of as a typical multifamily type of development, in that they're separate and more of a townhome style in terms of how they're laid out. Number 10, that a $600 fee in lieu of dedication be paid per dwelling per 1124.05D. That deals with recreational amenities and open space. There's a requirement in the code to provide that, and if developers are unable to do so based on the specific conditions of a site or other restrictions, there's a mechanism that allows them to pay that fee so that we can continue to maintain and enhance those types of amenities as these new residents and more people will be able to use all of those services from the city. Number 11, must meet all other Chapter 1145 landscape design requirements, including street trees and tree preservation and protection and provision of a refundable cash landscape site completion bond payable to the city of an amount no less than 50% of the cost of quantities specified in the plan. And that just deals with areas where you have to have required screening. For example, there would be some from any parking areas to adjacent residential districts for a commercial or office component that came in. And that's a standard item for any kind of site plan. You'd have to have a bond of half of the amount of the plantings. They have to stay in the ground for a year to show that they've come in and matured as they need to, and then we would release that. Number 12, declaration of covenants, conditions, restrictions, and reservation of easements shall be provided with final plat documents. Number 13, provide sufficient details and documentation to enable electric department review of development site. Number 14, conformance with fire department requirement that any dead-end street over 150 feet have a proper fire apparatus turnaround as described in the Ohio Fire Code, and that streets must be a minimum of 20 feet wide. With respect to the width there and the comment about recording and the easements, they're currently showing all of this network that you see here as a 76-foot wide general utility and access easement. And so that's all intended to be accounted for within that. I know they're working towards compliance with some of those fire department requirements. The width of what is provided was already laid out at enough to meet that. And we would just need to make sure it's constructed to a standard that supports all those things. And then in terms of specifics like the hydrant locations and things, they would have to respond to that and meet those minimum standards. And then the 15th item is that the developers to explore design efforts to provide connectivity to trails and to help create a park-like feel of the existing wetlands. That's intended to be a summary comment to some discussion that happened at the Planning Commission, and they added that to their motion on the floor after hearing all the evidence and going through the report and the file with the applicant and the city. That they really were speaking to making sure that there are some functional pedestrian areas within the site, and that they help work with us to find logical ways to maybe use some of this open space as amenities for the new residents and for making possible connections to other parts of the city where we've got those initiatives moving forward as well. So what you see here is the what would be the street network and the conceptual plan. This is the residential component here. If you recall, there was an area in this section of the site that had a footprint of 4 different commercial office buildings. And what their intention is here, they're saying, I think just based on some of the details that they've gone through their process with, led them to flip that area here from the south to the north end of the site. So there was some discussion around those things too at the Planning Commission. And ultimately, this is what was put forth with recommendation for approval with those conditions as stated. So that completes my summary of the item. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Paul, for your presentation. I think I'd like to hold questions to see if Mr. Modick would like to speak on behalf of the project.
I would. Thank you very much for your time. Greg Modick, 10474 Broadview Road, Broadview Heights, Ohio. Appreciate the time and consideration on this agenda item this evening. Once again, going through Planning Commission, I really liked the process. It was very collaborative. There was a lot of open feedback. I can tell you that even from that meeting, we've gotten to work on a few things here, and that really is, in my opinion, the process of preliminary planning, trying to say, here's what our thoughts are. We dialed in a little bit closer, and Planning Commission and some of the residents were very helpful in their feedback. Just to address a few items there, the 25% or 10 acres, that was something that when Fred and I first started this as kind of a blank slate of here's the acreage of land, it was broken down as that. As I started to take into account open space, buffers, wetland area that's unbuildable, stormwater management, I tried to hone in on what is the square footage we should be targeting more so from the commercial component. And the goal was approximately 50,000 square feet. The layouts that we submitted at the time of rezoning depicted that all on one story flat that kind of took up the most space as possible on there. And I wanted to make sure and ensure that that fit, knowing that if we went to 2 stories for a different use, the potential was there that you could gain additional space, not reduce space. Our submission, as it was sent in with kind of a blank in that commercial area, it was, in my opinion, we were coming in for just a residential. In talking with the Planning Commission and Adam leading up to that meeting, I was aware that, you know, there should be something shown for that area. I did provide something to Planning Commission. In a moment here, if appropriate, I can share a screen with you on some things we've worked on. Mr. Gill, the property immediately to the north there, you know, brought up a good point. It's one of those, you look at a 10-foot parking setback and on paper, man, that's a great idea. When the neighbor raises his hand and says, hold on a minute, that's 10 feet from my property and you're going to have a parking lot there. Can we do something more? Can we look at the property line? I've since had that staked and spoken with Mr. Gill. I did not have an opportunity to meet him out there today, but I will. And what I've committed to him, and I can show you here and intend to submit with final should this move forward, is a 25-foot parking setback. I additionally talked with him about the grade differential. His property kind of sits up on a knob compared to Cuyahoga, as a portion of this property does too. We're looking to develop, and we need to bring that knob down. So we would have approximately a 10 to 15 foot cut at his property line to get down to the plateau where we would build the parking lot and commercial area. So you're able to have the appropriate connectivity to Cuyahoga without, you know, potentially larger trucks or vehicles coming up a steep entrance ramp into it. We have been able to update the plan. It was fully, I'll admit, my mistake. I gave our engineers a direction of 160. I took really bad notes that night when 150 was put out there, but we have reduced our plan to 150 units. Some of the feedback at Planning Commission was possibly considering a 2-story building. If it's okay, I can put up a couple depictions we put up here. Would you guys like me to share my screen and show you a few of those?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is one of the exhibits we put together, and it depicts solely 2-story buildings. And what we have here is the 25-foot parking setback. Parking around the entire building. We removed parking along the roadway coming into it that we originally had shown. And this is a 15,300 square foot area building. They would be 2 stories tall, so a total of 30,000 square feet. Additionally, there is this building down here that is a 10,500 square foot footprint and 2 stories. So that shows us there just over 51,600 square feet. With 261 parking stalls, so the required parking stalls. Some of our layouts did show parking pushing into this area here, so I fear there's room for expansion should these buildings grow to a larger scale. But we feel very comfortable and able to provide appropriate screening. I did talk to Mr. Gill today and made mention to him that, you know, to commit to exactly what that screening would be, some sort of fencing or solid barrier and or a combination of plantings, I think would be premature at this point until we actually have that final site plan. And I would say that from our end, I remain committed to working with the city with their feedback, as well as Mr. Gill, to make sure that when we do have a user for that commercial area, that we provide the appropriate screening based on what's being built and where it's being built. Another exhibit that we created here, just kind of some working drawings I intend to share with Adam and work through the process as we go to detail engineering. These 2 buildings stay at 1-story, and then we have the same 2-story building down here. So I think we have some options in that. And, you know, this is kind of the overall, it shows, you know, all 1-story. This is what we had kind of intended originally. 1-story down here, 2-story up here. We're only 10 foot off the the property line with Mr. Gill. And that's with the feedback of Planning Commission. We're able to change to those other 2 layouts I shared. So we are able to get down to the 150 units. I have that shown right over here, and I'm comfortable with that. I'll leave these up in case anyone has a question, but last couple of things are that The walkability within it, we've been exploring that and looking at some options. I have spoken with Adam about that, trying to look at into greater connectability and what options do we have there, as well as internal within ours, so we can adhere to the code requirements on street design. Last thing I'd say is that a key takeaway that I had from the beginning of this year was being understanding of the Mudbrook watershed and kind of being up towards the upper end of it in Cuyahoga Falls. This current property has asphalt grindings and a lot of impervious areas per se that the water just runs off, and we want to make sure that we do exactly what's needed per code, which is quite stringent, but what's needed too, as far as the downstream analysis, the amount of retention on the site to make sure that this is done properly. And honestly, really we're going to be providing more green area than was previously there when we started, which is a unique situation, but still we'll go through the same stormwater management, work with Tony to accomplish that, just as we'll work with fire and water at the time of final engineering. I appreciate again the time and consideration. Sorry I was a little long-winded. Please let me know if you want me to stop sharing my screen or leave this up if anyone would have a question, maybe the bigger site. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Modick. I just first want to thank you for updating us with that new site plan proposal, and the time that you took with to listen to the residents and follow up with Mr. Gill is appreciated greatly, and I'm sure that he will be pleased to know that you've done everything you can to make this more cohesive with the neighbor. So appreciate that. I don't have any other questions. Are there any questions from the committee? No. Okay. Any questions from council? Yes, President Brillhart.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If I may make a comment and ask a question to Mr. Modick.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Modick, thank you for all the efforts that you and Mr. Karam have put into on this development. And my understanding is that there probably will be less water runoff with this development than what's on there now. And I just wanted to be assured of that. And for the residents, it will be better as far as like the water going to Mudbrook. Is my understanding correct?
Yes, and like I said, the unique characteristic with this site, typically when we're coming in, it's quite often a grass field, a farm field, possibly a wooded area, and we're removing that vegetation and then doing all the proper stormwater management. This is almost like a redevelopment site in that, there's a lot of impervious area given the amount of stone and asphalt grindings out there. We're just kind of catching, when that rain hits, it goes, and it's coming right at that Mudbrook watershed. So by us doing retention and actually by creating the additional green space, I'm sure there could be some argument that we're already going to be reducing the runoff, but that's not the right way to approach this. And I'm sure Mr. Damasi would tell you as well. We will do the right retention and we'll actually improve what's already a problem to the Mudbrook watershed.
Thank you. And just one more question about the number of trees. Will there end up being more trees there now than there is now?
I have not finalized the landscape plan. We had some feedback from planning and Adam. I would have to envision there were, because there were not a lot of trees on the site that were coming down associated with our development. If you can see on the screen here, there was a small pocket down in this area for stormwater management, and then in this area for stormwater management. The remainder of the site is really already removed of trees. And when we bring in the landscape plan, we want to get a nice streetscape, lots of screening behind these units. And one more thing I want to point out is this area here with wetlands, it's not wooded. We're going to take the appropriate steps to remove the invasive cattails and plant the proper native vegetation that will help with the water quality of the watershed there too, in addition to our stormwater management and water quality within our ponds.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Modick, and thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Are there any questions or comments from the public who's here this evening? Just scrolling. I don't see any. Ms. Ciatola, were there any questions submitted or comments from the public prior to this meeting?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much again for answering our questions and for the detailed presentations. Is there a motion to bring temporary ordinance B22 out of committee?
So moved. Second.
There is a motion and a second to bring temporary ordinance B21 out of committee for a vote for full council next week. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion, yes, the motion passes 3-0. Thank you, everyone. And that concludes the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting this evening.
It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. We have all our members here, so we have a quorum. We're going to start with temporary ordinance B23, presented by the administration. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts without competitive bidding for the stabilization of Akron Peninsula Road in the city of Cuyahoga Falls and declaring an emergency. Russ Kring.
Yeah, good morning.
There you are.
Yeah,
you
good morning.
moved on me. How you doing tonight?
Everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, sometimes I have trouble with this. So, back on March 4th, Tony and his folks got a call that there was a issue with a slope out on the Cuyahoga River next to AP Road. He went out, took a look at it, and again, on March 4th, he closed it down, closed AP Road down from Ira up to Bolins because of being a safety issue. We wanted to jump on that, so we contracted with the folks from River Reach and EnviroScience. The contract's actually through River Reach, but EnviroScience gave them a hand, and they jumped. They had a break in their schedule, so they were able to jump on it and go out there and make a repair for us. We did an emergency PO, and then this PO here this contract here will just basically take care of the overall amount and get them paid, and the job's done. The AP Road was opened back up a couple of weeks ago. So.
Okay, very good. I think we're probably all aware of that, reading in the paper or hearing otherwise. So this is spend the money and then ask permission, right?
Yeah, we didn't really have a choice on this one.
Right. No, I got it. And I appreciate the, we went out there, we assessed it. We didn't want to shut it down, I'm sure, but had to for safety reasons. And it's not always popular when you're shutting the road down, but it sounds like you did what you guys needed to do. You got it back up, and my puppy's coming to say hi. Got it back up and open for the public. So we appreciate that. I certainly, as the finance chair, don't want to say, gosh, that doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it seems like it's not a lot of money for what we got done. And do we have an idea? And Russ, I'm asking you and or Tony at the same time here, but the type of remediation that we did, do you have a sense of how long that'll last? I know you can't predict the weather, but are we pretty confident that this is a good fix?
Yeah, I mean, we had a couple of options. We felt like we had a couple of options on this when we started. One of them was to, for lack of a better description, put a Band-Aid on it, throw some stone down in there, and do something that may get us another year or two. Or we could go ahead and knowing that we have a couple other areas along the stretch that are going to need addressed, we wanted to go ahead and take care of this one so we can kind of move on and assess the next one. So, Tony, I don't know. Yeah, Tony, I don't know. What would you guess on this? I mean, I think it was a semi-permanent fix, to be honest with you.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
as you probably know, we've had to close AP Road several times over the last 15 years to do some of these major improvements. And although it seems like there's a never-ending number of these times that we have to do these repairs, we've never had to go back and do a repair twice at the same location. So every time we've done a major repair like this, it seems to have lasted, and we've never had to go back and redo it. Russ is right. Sometimes we go out and we just do quick little emergency repairs just because we're there and It's quick and easy, and it'll last a couple years. But in a case like this, we feel confident this will last a very long time.
Great. Well, thank you, both of you, for the information. Are there any additional questions or concerns from the Finance Committee? From council? From the public? Okay. Do I hear a motion to bring out temporary ordinance B23 for a vote next week?
So moved.
Second?
I heard a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll vote on B23 next week. The administration would like to hold B24 in committee until further notice, so we will accommodate. Temporary ordinance B25 presented by the administration. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a modification of contract number 8100 with Quality Control Inspection, Inc., and declaring an emergency. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Quality Control Inspection has been providing construction engineering and administration for the West Steeles Corners Road resurfacing project that began last year. Their services have included inspection of the work, documentation of DBE and EEO compliance, processing payments, and making sure the project adheres to the rules and processes of the ODOT LPA program. Due to unforeseen site conditions, the scope of their work has gone beyond what was originally assumed and has caused their contract to go over the original amount. The main condition that we found is the presence of underground utilities, including gas and water lines, located in the immediate vicinities of the guardrails, which we're replacing. And so this has caused us to, this required several weeks of coordination with utility companies, including ODOT and the city and the contractors, so the guardrails can be safely replaced. This modification request is for $18,732, which when added to QCI's original contract brings their new total to $64,213. Bad news, good news that ODOT will pay 80% of this cost. So through the grant that we've received. And I can answer any questions you might have.
Is that the work they were doing down close to Northampton on that part of Steeles?
So this is Steeles between Northampton and State Road.
Right, because they were doing additional work close to that four-way stop down there.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And then so our 20% is the $64,213, not to exceed, right?
No, the total contract is $64,213. What finance likes to do is they like to book the whole amount so that they can show, I don't fully understand the finance department. And so they tell me that
I don't either.
we just, so we just have to book it, I guess. And, but no, you're right. Our net effect will be 20% of the 64,000.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that was our 20% and the total contract was probably around 320 or something like that.
No.
Okay. Well, while we're talking about that, Brian, why do we put the total amount down?
Accounting wise and for our financial reporting, we put the total amount in as a cost to the city. That way we then start to depreciate that total cost over time because we will own the asset.
We own the total, right.
We own the total asset. So they want us to book it for that total amount so that it looks like we own the entire thing.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Are there any questions for any of the three gentlemen that spoke on this or anyone else from the Finance Committee? From the rail? Anyone from the public here tonight that would like to talk about this? Oh, okay. Is there a motion to bring out B25 for a vote next week?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll vote on B25. Let's move to B26, presented by the administration. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a modification of contract number 8076 with Lake Erie Construction Company and declaring an emergency. Tony, you again?
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2020, last year, ODOT inspected the overhead signs on State Route 8. the expressway. And as a result of their inspection, it was determined that 2 of those signs, which we are responsible for, needed to be replaced. ODOT agreed to pay for 50% of this work. And so the city entered into a contract with Lake Erie Construction to replace the signs. The original contract with them was for $50,000 so that they could begin work right away. And they took down the signs that needed to be replaced, and then they took their time to order the new ones. And all that's been complete now. The project is completely done. We always knew that the final cost was going to be somewhat north of 50. And this modification request is for $20,400, which will bring their total to $70,400. Again, that's their total contract amount. And we will be paying, I think this is set up as a reimbursement. I think we pay the total amount and then we get reimbursed by ODOT.
Okay. So they agreed to pay 50% because they agreed that this is beyond routine maintenance. Are all signs such as these on the expressway considered more than routine maintenance, or did this fall into a certain category? Did we have to negotiate for that 50%, or how did that work out?
Well, so like the speed limit signs and those are ours that's considered routine maintenance. These are the truss signs, the big overhead, as you can see,
Right.
expensive signs.
Yeah.
At first, it was our responsibility, but we called them, we sat down with them, we had a couple discussions with them. They came back and some emails, and they came back and they offered to pay 50%. So it was sort of some horse trading there.
Okay. Well, good. Well, appreciate the initiative. It's saving us some money. Any questions from the Finance Committee? From the rail? From the public? Okay. Is there a motion to bring out B26 for a vote next week?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Let's move on to the final piece that we're looking at in the Finance Committee. Temporary Ordinance B27 presented by the administration. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts according to law for the demolition of structures located on 3427 Cuyahoga Lake Road within the city, and removal of demolition debris, and certifying the cost thereof to the county fiscal officer for collection in the manner provided by law, and declaring an emergency. Tony.
Chairman. Beginning in 2019, the Community Development Housing Division began issuing code violations orders for the garage at 3427 Cuyahoga Lake Road. That location is a vacant residence at the time. On March 9th of this year, Summit County Building Department issued a condemnation order for the garage and ordered its demolition if no response was provided by the owner within 30 days. As you can imagine, I'm here, so no response was provided within that time frame. And so this ordinance will allow us to assess the costs for this demolition.
Okay. The title of the ordinance, and maybe it always is plural, but it says structures. But this is just for one single garage. So on this property, there's a home, there's a garage. Are there any other outbuildings on the property?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, not that I am either. I just wanted to, sometimes out there, people have more than one garage or something like this. So do you know if the house is inhabited? I mean, are there people living at the house?
No, the house is vacant, but it's not in a condition that can be condemned.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, we're doing what we need to do, I guess, and clean up what we can. If we don't have a response, there's not much to work with. So questions or comments from the Finance Committee? From council? From the public? Is there a motion to bring out temporary ordinance B27 for a vote next week?
So
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there anything else to come before the Finance Committee? We're adjourned.
All right. It is 7:14 and the public, yes. And Public and Industrial Improvements Committee will now come to order. We have one item to discuss this evening, temporary ordinance B28 presented by the administration. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts according to law for the repair and resurfacing of Chestnut Boulevard from State Road to 2nd Street and declaring an emergency. And Mr. Demasi, again, we will call on you, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The city received a grant from ODOT to resurface Chestnut Boulevard from 2nd Street to State Road. This project was originally planned for 2023 or maybe even 2024, but we worked with ODOT to move it up to 2021 this year. ODOT will pay for 80% of this project up to a maximum of $400,000. We are currently out to bid, and bids will be open on May 18th, and construction could begin as early as July 1st. We're here today with the ordinance request because when bids open on May 18th, that doesn't leave us a lot of time to go through the awarding and encumbrance. And this is a project where we have to have the money encumbered and awarded by the end of June. So trying to save a few weeks here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Demasi. All those things are good news for sure. Are there any questions from the committee? Questions or comments from other members of council? Mr. Balthus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the administration for applying for these funds. I think it's your street paving is very important, and I know we've had a strong commitment to that over the last few years and spending significant resources, but it's always great when we can find partners that can also put money in the pot to help contribute to maintaining our roads. So I just want to thank everyone that was involved, and those applications don't submit themselves and they can take a lot of time, and just really appreciate everyone doing the work to get those funds. They definitely do make a difference, and then also speeding it up. I think it's very good. So just wanted to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Balthus. Ms. Spinner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to, on behalf of the residents in Ward 2 that live on Chestnut, from whom I've heard on many occasions that they would like to have this done, I appreciate it greatly. I'm looking forward to passing this information along.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Spinner. Anyone else on the rail? Ms. Penta?
I just wholeheartedly agree with Mrs. Spinner on this one. Part of this is Ward 3, and then I know those residents are very excited as well. So
very good, thank you. All right, were there any comments from the public on this? And Ms. Ciatola said no.
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, then, hearing none. So I will entertain a motion to bring temporary ordinance B28 out of committee with a favorable recommendation for a vote next week.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. And that concludes the Public and Industrial Improvements Committee for this evening.
okay, it is 7:18, and it's now time for the Community Development Committee to come to order. We have no minutes to approve, and we have two pieces of legislation to consider for this evening. That's B29 and B30. B29, presented by the administration, is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a community reinvestment area agreement with Harbor Castings, Inc. and declaring emergency. And I believe we have Ms. Spoggy on this today.
Good evening. I'm filling in for Diana this evening. As you know, we utilize a community reinvestment area as an economic development tool to incentivize economic development throughout the city. This is done by offering a real estate tax exemption for businesses constructing new facilities or making improvements that will increase the taxable value by at least $250,000. Businesses will receive up to a 50% 10-year real estate tax abatement for the new taxable value added to their structure, and will continue to pay the original real estate taxes that are due before the development during the course of the abatement. The proposed project that is before you tonight is located in the Cuyahoga River CRA district on Bailey Road. Harbor Castings, Inc. will construct a youth basketball training facility to be leased to David Lane Basketball LLC. The project has an initial investment of $1.4 million and will create 2 permanent full-time and 4 permanent part-time positions. As you are also aware, we must notify the Cuyahoga Falls City School District of the proposed CRA agreement. And Dr. Nichols and Mr. Lane have agreed to an annual scholarship of $1,000 to be paid to the Cuyahoga Falls Scholarship Foundation throughout the term of the abatement. They have also agreed to provide clinics and training sessions for Cuyahoga Falls City School District youth, middle school, and high school basketball teams per year at no charge. Mr. Chuck Lane and I believe Mr. David Lane are both on this call to discuss the project a little bit further and to answer any questions that you may have. So I'm going to turn it over to them at this time. Mr. Lane?
David's going to take this, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, I was my microphone was muted. I'm sorry about that. Hey guys.
You're on.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Good. If you just would like to explain the project a little bit to them a little bit more.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so we're gonna have an NBA full-size court, which will provide 2 full courts for youth sideways. We'll have a strength and conditioning room, which will be 30 by 32 feet. It'll be able to house maybe a team and a half, 2 teams at one time. And then we'll have a recovery room, like a training room to take care of the body after the workouts. We look forward to providing youth hoops, kids camps, kids individual training, men's leagues, 40 and over leagues. Just gonna do a whole bunch of stuff.
Anyone else wanted to speak on its behalf? Okay. Does anyone on the committee have any questions that they'd like to ask? Anyone? Anyone on the council have any questions or comments? Mr. James?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's been a long time, David. I didn't even recognize you.
It has been a long time. I hope all is well.
Oh, everything's doing great. So glad to see you. For those that don't know, I coached David along and helped his dad, Chuck, in youth hoops for years, and then watched him develop all the way through high school with my son, Steve. And let me tell you something, Chuck Lane and David Lane know basketball. This is going to be a wonderful gym. There's going to be some kids that are going to come out of that gym a heck of a lot better than when they walked in. And I'm really excited. Needless to say, it's in my ward. And I think it's going to be a great addition. And I am all for this. I am super stoked for this. And I just can't wait to get it started. And Chuck and David, good luck. Really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for the kind words. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the same thing, though. I'm looking forward to getting, the basketball culture back in the city and really develop the youth and hopefully providing opportunities for kids to go to school for a sport specifically. Because the community it needs to get that juice and that power back within the youth sports, in my opinion. So I'm hoping this facility can help provide that.
Totally agree with you, David. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Anyone else from council? I think Mr. Gorbach, I see your hand there.
Thank you. Just if it's in the documentation and I missed it, I apologize, but what kind of time frame, building time frame and opening are we looking at with this project?
Well,
go ahead, Dennis, go ahead.
If we can get the wood prices to come down, it'd be real quick.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah, Tim, time frame is once this gets submitted for the tax abatement, We would hope to be starting to clear ground in the next 30 days and hopefully have it under roof and ready to start utilizing sometime this fall.
You've got wood increases and metal increases to contend with. I know you laughed when you said it, but it's pretty significant. Once you get it cleared, are you planning to proceed, or are you going to kind of wait and see how that market goes? I can tell you that the metal market's going to stay the same for the rest of the year. I don't know that much about the wood market.
Yeah, that's a tough call, Tim. We do have a pricing already, and we're waiting for 2 more quotes to come in. With the pricing I currently have, I'm comfortable with proceeding at this time. So we're just, hopefully it's going to take a little while to clear the land and hopefully we see a break in wood prices here in the next 3 to 6 months anyways.
Yeah. Well, I hope you do too. And best of luck to you guys. We look forward to hearing about it. And I know Jerry will keep us up to speed, but certainly I look forward to driving by and seeing it growing out of the ground and wish you the best of luck. And thanks for deciding to invest here in the city.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Mr. Balthus, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo everything that's been said and say I appreciate your investment and specifically, I appreciate your partnership with the schools and the annual donation for the scholarship. I think that's really important. And then also the programming opportunities you're looking at doing with the community's youth. And just want to say thank you and I wish you the best. And I think it's going to be a great project and hopefully it'll have a real impact on a lot of young people's lives. And thank you for doing it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Of course, Mayor, of course.
Thank you. And I just wanted to give kudos to Chuck and his family. First of all, he's a wonderful business owner, provides a ton of jobs if you're not familiar with Harbor Castings, but great employer. And then on top of that, I was always bugging Chuck to move to Cuyahoga Falls. So guess what? He builds a beautiful house in Ward 8, so now lives here. And then on top of that, he's going to build this beautiful facility with his son to give back to the youth. So I just want to thank them for all they've done and continue to do in Cuyahoga Falls.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, definitely. That is wonderful to give back to the community. As I have a senior graduating this year, those scholarship funds are very helpful to help pay the cost for college. And so I'm looking forward to seeing this project in a couple of months.
Madam Chair, quickly, Frank Stams.
Yes, Mr. Stams.
I was trying to jump in and I just want to say congratulations, Chucky. You know you for a long time. Congratulations to your son. And, we need more facilities like this. So love the path you're taking on that. Good luck with the construction. Anything I can do to help, please let me know.
Thanks, Frank. Appreciate that.
Is there anyone else that wanted to ask any questions or concerns or anything? Any public comments? No? No.
No, Madam Chair.
All right, then at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve B29 out of committee with a favorable recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, passes 3-0. We'll bring this to vote on Monday, May 10th. And the last piece of legislation we have in community development is B30, presented by the administration. An ordinance approving and authorizing the mayor to execute a community development block grant agreement with R2K Contracting Inc. in an amount not to exceed $64,921 and declaring an emergency. I believe, Ms. Soleil, we have you on this one.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. ADA accessibility is something I feel very passionate about, and I'm really excited to talk to you this evening regarding the Quirk Cultural Center on Grant Avenue. As some of you may have realized, Quirk Cultural Center is in dire need of bathrooms that meet ADA compliance so that all the residents can participate in the many wonderful programs created and operated by our Parks and Rec Department. As you know from my many presentations to council, all projects funded by HUD must meet the national objective or a national objective. I'm pleased tonight to present this ordinance allowing us to use HUD funding to renovate the bathrooms at Quirk and bring them up to ADA compliance. We are able to do this because the project qualifies under conditions related to ADA accessibility and therefore meets the required national objective. I'm also pleased to say that this is one of the first times we have worked with our Parks and Rec Department on a joint project. So we're pretty excited to work with them. By way of background, there are many steps and meetings involved in the planning process. Parks and Rec Department was great. They created a work scope for the men's and women's bathroom on the first floor. A request for a proposal was written and advertised, and we got 3 contractor applications. R2K Contracting Incorporated was the lowest, most responsive bidder, meeting all the qualifications required, having experience and offering exactly what the city was looking for. This project has gone through an internal approval process, having been approved by the CDBG Loan and Grant Committee on April 8th. Tonight, we're asking you to approve authorizing the mayor to execute a community development block grant agreement with R2K Contracting Incorporated not to exceed $67,921. And because I'm not familiar with the Quirk Cultural Center building, I've asked Mike Fallis, Assistant Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, to attend the council this evening to answer any project-specific qualification or questions, that you may have. But before turning it back over to Mike, or for questions for Mike or myself, I wanted to let you know that we'll be back in the coming weeks. As you might remember, the city received a COVID-19 community development block grant allocation during HUD's 3rd round of funding in the amount of $233,720. I look forward to speaking to you about the appropriation of these COVID-19 funds and how we plan to use them. Any questions?
Does anyone from the committee have any questions for Ms. Soleil or Mr. Fallis? Does anyone from council at large have any questions? Mrs. Spinner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to just express the excitement to have these updates made to Quirk. It's the gem as part of Ward 2 and all the wonderful programming that's available there, and to expand that programming availability to folks in the community by virtue of these updates is very exciting and gratifying. I wanted to ask what the time frame is on the start and completion date for this project.
Mike, did you want to answer this or?
Sure. They are clear to start next week. Well, we needed to wait, and since this is a polling location for the Board of Elections and there is a primary tomorrow, we wanted to wait until that was finished, so we were not interfering with any election-related areas going on. But they're able to starting next week, and they anticipate about a 6-week construction timeframe.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, I see none. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve bringing out B30 with a favorable recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, that is 3-0. We'll bring this out of committee and vote for it on Monday, on May 10th. And that is all for community development. That concludes everything for this evening, actually, unless anyone else has anything that we're missing. Nope. Okay. Everyone, good night. That's it.
Have a good evening.
Good night. Happy birthday, Jerry.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
To be 21.
Happy birthday.